The Upaskwa Cree Nation, formerly known as the Paw Indian Band, has a population of over 3,000 people. The Atinikay Mall is owned and operated by the band. Some of the administration offices are located at the top floor and some at the lower floor, with 27 store outlets at the main floor. The Upaskwa Cree Nation established a co-management initiatives with the Manitoba provincial government back in the 1980s, and this action led to forming the Upaskwa Cree Nation Resource Committee. This committee represents the Upaskwa Cree Nation in the resource management. Upaskwa Cree Nation knew there was a decline in the moose population in that area back then. The Upaskwa Cree Nation Resource Committee meets with the Manitoba Natural Resources once a month to talk about what's happening in the field, such as the moose population, fish, and other wildlife issues. At these meetings, we discuss the issues that have to be dealt with, and before the Resource Committee can make final decisions and recommendations, they must seek support and approval by the Chief and Council. In 1986, the Upaskwa Cree Nation voluntarily closed that game hunting area, first for 2 years and again for another 3 years. Game hunting Area 6 was never closed, but the Upaskwa Cree Nation knew that the moose population was down to over 200. The declination ranged anywhere from natural predation such as wolves in the winter and black bear in the summer, coupled with diseases, flooding, clear-cutting, logging roads, all-terrain vehicles, and other human activities. On January 1989, Game Hunting Area 8 was reopened to hunting with a moose population of 1,000. And on December 1991, Game Hunting Area 6, which was never closed, its population was over 400. In September 1993, the Upaskwa Cree Nation and the Manitoba Natural Resources began noticing that the moose population in both areas were in trouble.
Game Hunting Area 8, east of the Paw, one of the finest moose hunting areas in Manitoba, at least it used to be. A number of years back, there used to be up to 1,500 moose in this game hunting area, 1960s. We got into the 1970s, the number of moose in that area began to decline quite noticeably. And there were a number of reasons for that. The Grand Rapids Hydro project flooded a lot of the area in the lower portion. There was a rapid increase in the number of hunters, in the types of transportation, snowmobiles, ATVs, even boats, four-wheel drives. A lot more people as well. So the basic problem was there was too much hunting occurring, the moose population couldn't stand that pressure. The Department of Natural Resources from the early 1970s to into the 80s had considerably reduced the number of licensed hunters and their seasons. There was reductions of season length. Bag limits went from any moose season in the wintertime to bull only. We had controls on the number of licenses issued through draw systems, cutting back the number of hunters. Designated routes to control vehicle use. All these things put in place did not stop the decline.
The Chief and Council meetings such as this, that the Upaskwa Cree Nation gave their support and approval to the Resource Committee to do a cost-sharing moose aerial survey with the Department of Natural Resources. When the aerial survey was completed, the results revealed the moose population declined from 1,000 to 650 within a 5-year period at Game Hunting Area 8, and from 407 to a little over 300 at Game Hunting Area 6.
This block, this one, this one, this one, and lost track of it.
Maybe this one here?
And this one here.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'd be 5 blocks on the way with guess up at Moose Lake.
Okay.
So there's 5 on the way and there's 3. And come back again, 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here.
3 coming back. Okay. That's off. That's set. That's on. Off. Off. That's off. That's out. Off. Off. Pedals are set. Key on. Battery on. Start pump on.
Teman pumina yo pe pe wichi ano muta yo gata mix chigo na pe ogruche pasca ste emineni teman e usi se ka ta mix ta yo ta pue edu ta yo ti soba da ti se meno pani ga ka no muta ga se wicha to ste ra pe yo pero tana no te uchu tana ga yo ga na spechete na mistake ne tinana ga tama ka gi pe mini wa ke tu ma che mino tas ti tagi mino pachita tagi we gi skeni tagi we gi sten tama ga ni ga na ga mini wi sia ma chu ma yo musa ga ni mo mi stay ta pe yo kirate wani sinano sam stay yo paganto ti ta mi sia mi stay tu now na ga ten tama ke on ke ti ta go ute tini an sa spne usta puru tama mana ma mit tini gina no ni sinni yo ke sut na masna no te yo ta su gina no ga ke nge yo na yo ta gina no gidu gina na mana pones gina no ta machia maga mi ta to yo ke de tona no yo sas yo pugyo an ta go ya u de tini an sas mis no ta pem stay kita mina no seitia megan menu anu che piana no che na nas kuman mine pe michi mai go mine pe wichi ga pa stoi umaga rutai pe pasigo che ke tutai ga ni menu yo bat nus ke che tana to e da chi go ta gi tai na go do chi ga ti skentena no mine ga tio ba tena no sa spena ga na ga chi ya go e ane ge ta na squats no mo chi squats ka no do ba ma ta cha gi ya go anis kiditona no ma na gitwas mis no che taginop mauk ga egon mo che u te chepian en nas kuma eu when obat nuske tige one yo tan sige ti spaniga sa spin usami ruta ma one mo tagi steni tama tagi simini wisia ma tia meno is point na ma is staba chita ego tsin nas komuno tagapia wicha siano madan sini student mano mai ruta yo and sini uru chei paska agan istan do ba tenu de tini gana mina betias kuni stai na mo wi chige sinu tamina na tio ba tena yo ini musae ni uchu istoi ni ka ti so ba tao da tio wi chige pitomana yo sini agina no mistegi pewani to ba tena no yo Miste pega papa tsimiga ya miste pega wani simigo isia no chino chpugi ni tena no tapasigo akmana tamama na yo tasuni sta bitan pe una ke ona yo taru taga yo one tiobat mane timino se utani sta na español panama mit ni ina no ni sanmate ta yo namaso ma kina no ni ke wandu chena no uta iba stigu menina mitno esa stigu se ina kavi kitchen is in no misteo na to pera du tawa muchi ni tana no va ya nucho pasigunena no usta hispanic usma misten nas komuna nucho kai pese pigis kan mina kai tian na wichga pa isteno muchi sta toge ona nes so as misno ni sani uche udo chiniga auche thank you.
Committee is what it is. It's an offshoot of the original Moose Management Committee that was started by the Opaskwayak Cree Nation back in 1980, when there was a major problem with the moose populations in Game Hunting Area 8, which is located within the Opaskwayak Cree Nation traditional areas. Our people at that time thought it was very important for us to get involved in the area of co-management because there were major problems, and at the time we weren't very involved in the process of bringing back the moose in Area 8. So as a result of that, the committee was struck up from the Chief and Council to deal specifically with moose management and moose management initiatives. However, since about 1987-88, the Chief and Council have taken this one step further. They wanted to establish a resources committee that would look after all the natural resources, waterways, all the wildlife within the OCN traditional areas. The traditional areas have been mapped out. They were done through interviews with elders. They were done through interviews with trappers and fishermen. And what the OCN traditional area shows is where our people do most of their activity as far as traditional and cultural activities like hunting and trapping and fishing. One thing I'd like to mention is that even before the treaties were established or were reaffirmed by the courts of Canada, the OCN, the Opaskwarak Cree Nation, was already a partner in the co-management agreement, because we felt at that time that something had to be done before the moose were totally wiped out of game hunting area 8. So that's one thing that we pride ourselves in that we're forward thinking. We work as much as possible with other groups, because it's only in working together that initiatives such as this can happen. To take that even a step further, the Opaskwarak Cree Nation meets with the Resources Committee, with Resources people from the province once a month to talk about issues, problems, new things that are coming up, ways that we can work closer together, and just to deal with general problems. And as a result of that, we've got a very strong working relationship with the enforcement officers, with the game wardens, whereas before we were always fighting because the courts didn't solidify our treaty rights until 2 years ago. And now with the Métis people also receiving hunting and treaty rights, or hunting rights, we also have to take that another step further and get them involved, and so that we can all work together to make sure that we conserve as much as possible, because the natural resources and wildlife are an important part of our people's culture and our people's background, and we have to make sure that there's always something there for our children and their children. And that's what makes this committee here so important. Okay, and moving on to the OCN traditional territories, they are outlined here in red, and it basically moves along the Saskatchewan River, which is up here, and follows it all the way down to the waters of Cedar Lake, Conley Bay. Now the major activity areas are down in the lower Saskatchewan and up in the higher Saskatchewan areas, Saskatchewan River areas. A lot of trapping is done in the Clearwater Lake area, Modesty Lake. That covers about a 900 square mile area. So that and that pretty well is the OCN band's traditional area of use.
The topic that I want to speak on this afternoon and today for the Aboriginals is the moose population in connection with resource management with OCN and various interest groups. The OCN had an agreement with the provincial government to establish an area for the purposes of controlled management of moose population. Our essential to make the population grow into a healthy resource is primarily in consideration with two primary objectives behind the scheme. One of them is the Manitoba Natural Resources Agreement, in which the provincial and federal governments have an obligation to make sure that the resources are there for the First Nations to use as food, as harvesting material for their livelihood. The other area is treaties. In the treaties, of course, we have an agreement established and recognized that we continue to survive with our way of life, and that includes the moose in regards to sustenance. However, further to that, we have to consider this important fact that we are Aboriginals and that we have a way of life, and we must consider any agreement that comes into being primarily through being Aboriginals. Secondly, that we sign treaties, but last and not least is that we are First Nations, and we consider ourselves Crees in our area here, and it is important that we as Crees maintain our way of life, and we have to consider moose management as one of the areas to be active and very controlled, perhaps in a way that educational systems need to be in place for the younger generation. Because the younger generation, perhaps through some of our own mistakes as Aboriginals, did not teach how to respect and the natural resources, the moose and their population. There are certain kinds of moose that you kill at every season, each season of the year, and if taken improperly, harvested improperly, the imbalance will be created, and there will be no growth, or growth that will be just above minimum of what is required in our area. It's important also to note that if we are going to maintain our way of life, we have to consider all these factors that I previously mentioned, primarily for our own sustenance. There will never be enough resources that if we harvest too many, there will never be enough of a way of life to sustain if we improperly use or abuse our rights. We have rights as Aboriginals and as Indian people. We may be able to have agreements with the province, but we cannot forget that we are Aboriginals and we have rights to go along with that, and we must never forget that important factor. Perhaps maybe it's due to past experiences that we have been forced into signing agreements without due consideration to our foremost being Aboriginal treaty and as First Nations. Thank you,
mota ui tawa si me musa. O se me no tenia, te ore te dia pasita che mo si skeni tena. Ore tai ano pata mata I mana si tamo. Rashi Munay, I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to say a few words on our resources. It's very important that we take a look at our territories because our grandfathers used to have traditional territories where they hunted, fished, and made a living off the land. And they kept the land in good shape along with the nature. They had a lot of help from nature because there were no dams, the rivers were clean, the grasses and the air was pure. Many years ago I remember walking on the road, you could drink from the side of the road. Today you're even scared to drink from the tap water, that's how much pollution there is. But getting back to our resources, the fishes, the berries, the grasses and the roots, and the things that we used to have, because we had a different diet than the Europeans, and as a result, we tend to be in good health. We did tend to be better health than the Europeans were, but in their history books, they were not. They didn't mention these things because they're always trying to look after their own interest, and as such, we have to make sure that the resources that we have, in terms of our host population, our fishes, and our grasses, and our berries, are looked after. And we have to have a voice in how they're looked after, because we cannot rely on a classroom setting, because the biologists and all those people that come and study these things, they do have some flaws in their, I guess, in their philosophy about nurturing and developing those things. And we have our own, because we have lived in this land for many years. We know how to take care of this land. We don't need to necessarily take these things in the classroom, because we live off the land. And if you live off the land, you have to know how to take care of it. It's like having a job. A job requires skill, knowledge, and what have you. It's the same thing with our environment and the foods that we have. So it's very important that we take care of these things, because it not only involves the animal, but it involves our health. And if we take a good look at all the medicines that were developed, and how our people don't say that we did not contribute to this country. We did. We have a lot of medicines that we know, and yet the white man is controlling those because he's making a lot of money. And if he's only got exclusive rights to develop those things, then he's the only one who has, who makes all the money. But in our system, we don't worry about money. We worry about how we help each other, how we help the environment. That's how our culture is. And I was taught these things many years ago by my elders, my grandparents. And even my parents taught me to respect the land. Because if I destroy the land, then I'm destroying myself and everything around it. Because you see the deserts, you see the wasteland, you see places where pollution has taken over. And I don't think that that's too far off in the future. If we don't take a stand, we have to take a stand now and try and protect our territories. And in doing so with our territories, we're asking all First Nations out there to also take a look at what happens to their territories in terms of the animals, because we don't take care of them. And we kill off all of them. What will our children have in the future?
Yeah.